Each of us, or, to be more precise, the average inhabitant of Earth eats and inhales 330 microparticles of plastic per day. Microplastic is found in polar ice, tap water, beer, honey, salt, sea turtles, and mosquitoes. Tea pyramid sachets leave billions of plastic grains in the tea after brewing. A plastic bag, which will eventually disintegrate into small parts, was found even at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. It turns out that microplastic already affects all processes in the world. Sounds scary. However, there are almost no studies on whether microplastic directly harms human health, and no one is interested in financing them. Let's figure out what is the danger of plastic particles polluting the planet and what is happening with Baikal, the Baltic Sea, and the Arctic. Plastic doesn't decompose in the literal sense. It is stable and only gradually disintegrates into smaller and smaller particles. Any plastic pieces ranging in size from 5 mm to a micrometer are called microplastic. It is 40 to 120 times thinner than a human hair. There are also smaller elements, submicroplastic, and then nanoplastic. They are almost not studied, although it is already known that such particles can penetrate cell membranes. At the same time, what harm it does to living organisms has not really been found out yet. People can also inhale microfibers in the air in the heart of Paris and in the remote Arctic. It is known that small particles in the air penetrate deep into the lungs, where they can cause various diseases, even cancer. Factory workers who are engaged in nylon and polyester production have demonstrated evidence of impaired functioning and reduction of lung volume because of polymers of plastics. Although there was no widespread cancer damage, they are subject to significantly greater risks than the average person. Now the world produces about 300 million tons of plastic annually, and most of it ends up in landfills. It is difficult to calculate exactly how much microplastic gets into the oceans. According to some pessimistic estimates, it is about 17 million tons per year. Microplastic is formed from bags, bottles, and any other plastic packaging, car tires, peeling paint. It is contained in urban dust. It is also washed down the drain after washing synthetics. Plastic granules are specially added to shampoos, shower gels, scrubs, washing powders, and toothpaste for a better cleaning effect. The sale of glitter and other makeup products containing plastic particles has already been banned in several countries. There is twice as much microplastic accumulated in the world's oceans than it was previously thought, according to recent studies. Scientists used a net with small holes, 100 micrometers, instead of the previous larger ones, 333 micrometers, to filter microparticles in the waters off the coasts of the UK and the USA, so they were able to detect smaller particles. This data showed a 2.5-fold increase in microplastics. Pollution of the world's oceans by microplastic is significantly underestimated, said Penny Lindick, professor at the Plymouth Marine Laboratory, head of the study. If the nets are even denser, we will certainly collect more particles. And scientists from the University of Massachusetts, together with colleagues from Shandong University in China, studied the behavior of microplastic in the soil and found out that it is absorbed and accumulated in plants. The study is published in the Nature magazine. Moreover, microplastic has been falling with the rain for a long time. In the area of nature reserves and national parks of the United States alone, so much plastic falls with the rain in a year that would be enough to produce 123 to 300 million plastic water bottles, the authors of the article published in the Science magazine believe. The study showed that on average 4% of the total precipitation is made up of synthetic polymers. Think about it, 4% of atmospheric precipitation is microplastic. The amount of plastic indicates the influence of people on the planet. The more there is, the stronger the anthropogenic load. Plastic has already formed the so-called plastosphere, a new habitat. Algae and bacteria grow on pieces of plastic, animals live or hide in them. For example, hermit crabs use plastic bottle caps as shells, water bugs that travel on the surface of the ocean lay eggs on plastic garbage, and fish fries swim into bottles as in shelters, from which it is convenient to observe the surroundings. Scientists found out that microparticles of plastic remain in the digestive system in the larva of an ordinary mosquito even in the adult stage. Thus plastic leaves the water and moves to land and pollutes it too. There is already so much plastic in the oceans, rivers, and ground that even if humanity completely stops production right now, it will remain in nature for a very, very long time. Despite the scale, the problem of microplastics isn't voiced loud enough yet. For the first time, microplastic was discussed back in the 1970s, but major studies appeared only 15 years ago. Recently, WHO announced that the threat of microplastic to humans has not been proven. In total, the organization's employees studied 52 publications on microparticles and found that only 4 met the quality criteria. The WHO experts noted that today the concentrations of microplastic in drinking water are not dangerous for humans, but recognized that knowledge on this issue is still limited. That is, the organization believes that more qualitative research is needed for a more accurate assessment. According to Nana Hartmann, a scientist from the Technical University of Denmark, after microplastics were found in beer and honey, critics said that the samples could have been contaminated directly during the study, and the methods used by experts did not allow to reliably distinguish cellulose and chitin from plastic. That is, organic matter from inorganic. To see the effect, microplastic concentrations are often used in laboratories, which are many times higher than those observed in nature. The authors of a paper reviewed by WHO showed that mice who were given water with microplastics developed liver inflammation, but the concentration of particles in the water during the experiment was 5 times higher than in tap water. About 1,000 articles can be found in the National Library of Medicine of the USA when searching for microplastic. Although the direct harm of microplastic for large animals has not yet been proven, scientists have already shown that it affects nature as a whole. Small animals eat particles covered with algae or bacterial film, mistaking them for food. Plastic accumulates in their digestive systems, which causes their death, and this, in turn, destroys the entire ecosystem, because plankton is the basis of the food chain, says Mikhail Kolobov, senior researcher at the Department of Hydrobiology and General Ecology. There are toxic substances in plastic, like dyes, plasticizers that give elasticity to materials, and solvents. They can damage organs and tissues of small animals, but it is not yet clear to what extent this happens in nature. Most experiments are carried out in laboratories. Also, particles, like sponges, absorb harmful impurities and carry them over long distances. Some plastics contain, for example, bisphenol A, which mimics estrogen, the female sex hormone. Getting into the environment in large numbers, it is able to change the sexual cycles of animals, for example, reduce their ability to reproduce. Many people are sure that Baikal is one of the cleanest lakes in the world. But Baikal water contains 60 to 80,000 microplastic particles per square mile of surface, as in the rather polluted Great Lakes Huron and Erie. We take samples in Lake Baikal with special nets that filter particles floating in the water. They are dragged a mile or 2 by a ship. It is the surface layer that is most interesting, because there lives the main target of microplastic, plankton. Baikal has special microplastic. It is smaller than, for example, in the open sea. Waves beat it against the shore and grind it into very fine dust, says the expert. The study of samples in the laboratory takes a lot of time. Scientists are still inspecting what they got 3 years ago. This is painstaking work with very small objects. The selected particles are preserved, examined under a microscope, and then the chemical composition is studied. We analyze the data and draw a map of lake pollution, says the scientist. According to him, not only tourists can be blamed for the pollution of Lake Baikal. The fishermen massively buy cheap Chinese nylon nets, and then just throw them in the water. Factories and landfills also make a big contribution. Physicist and specialist in microplastic Irina Chubarenko says that now is the era of geographical discoveries in the study of microplastic. Scientists are looking for traces of it, and most often they find them. According to several years of research, the Baltic Sea contains 2 synthetic threads per 10 liters of water. Most likely, the threads appear in the sea due to washing. They are so small that they easily pass through sewage treatment facilities. Irina explores the migration of plastic in the world's oceans. Our main task is to understand where the most microplastic is accumulated. It is these places that we will have to pay attention to in the future. Biologists at our institute study, for example, how biota, in particular diatoms and other algae, help the destruction of plastic in nature. A senior researcher at the Institute of Oceanology, Filip Sapozhnikov, together with a group of other scientists, has already found out that the Arctic is not free of plastic, and there is quite a lot of it, and a huge part is hidden under impassable ice. According to very relative data from last year, 10 cubic feet of Arctic water contains about 1 particle of plastic. That's quite a lot. Also, this year I am working with samples mined above Svalbard and Franz Josef Land. They were taken while drifting on the ship Akademik Treshnikov. For this purpose, it was specially frozen in ice for 2 months. Microparticles have already been found in several clumps of microalgae floating under the ice. This amount of garbage that has already entered the ocean cannot be caught just like that. It must somehow be destroyed at the level of ecosystem activity, Sapojnikov believes. Simply put, the problem with plastic is that cheap things are made of it, in particular, packaging for liquids, including water. And while rich countries can afford restrictions, poor states with large populations cannot, because many still do not have access to clean drinking water. In this case, it is more profitable to bottle it in plastic. In 2016, Japanese biologists found a strain of bacteria capable of processing PET, one of the most common types of plastic, from which almost all water or soda bottles are made. The activity of the enzyme they secrete is higher than that of their analogs, but it is still not effective enough for industrial scale. The scientists are trying to enhance the effect so that you can quickly get rid of plastic garbage. Experts have also found worms, more precisely, larvae of mealworm beetles, that can feed on plastic. Scientists agree that it is necessary to establish control over plastic all over the world at all stages of its existence, from production and use to disposal. Without this, it gets into nature in huge quantities. How important is separate garbage collection in this matter? And would you separate the garbage if you were sure that later all this would not fall into one common landfill but would be recycled? We are waiting for your comments under this video. Thank you for watching and caring about this difficult topic. And see you in the next videos on our channel.